Greetings, my brothers. I'm going to tell you what's really going on with Chris Paul, Austin Rivers, and Blake Griffin, and Doc Rivers. You guys have to remember, when Donald Sterling was the owner of the Clippers, a lot of feelings was hurt, a lot of egos was bruised, a lot of people was ready to leave the Clippers organization, but there was one person that made them all stay, and that one person is Austin Rivers. Although Donald Sterling said all of those mean racist things about his players and his employees, Austin Rivers had a soft spot for Donald Sterling. It says here on page 62 that Austin Rivers didn't stop believing in Santa Claus until he was 18 years old. So you have to understand, when he looked at Mr. Donald Sterling, he saw that holly jolly man and he wanted him to remain the owner of the Clippers organization. But Chris Paul wasn't having it. But regardless of how anyone feels about Austin Rivers, his father Doc Rivers is not having it, and this is why him and Chris Paul got into their first altercation. It says here on page 19 that Doc Rivers swung on Chris Paul, but Chris is so small and he's so short, he moved out of the way instantly. And when Doc Rivers swung, he missed Chris Paul, but he hit Blake Griffin in the nose. And this is why Blake Griffin was out for a part of the last season, because he was injured. But they tried to say he had an ankle injury, but the truth is Doc Rivers punched him in his nose and he wasn't able to play because he was trying to hit Chris Paul. Now, there was a big scrimmage the other night between the Rockets and the Clippers. It was a big blowout fight. Chris Paul punched Blake Griffin in the face, and after the game, the Rockets went to the Clippers locker room. Well, when you're from Houston, you have to uphold your gangsterism. And I know the Clippers are from LA, but there's a huge difference between Clips and Rockets. Now, when you got Clips, that doesn't mean you have a gun. You're not going to be able to bust anything. But when you're a Rocket, you're way better than just some Clippers. The Clippers aren't busting any Clips, but the Rockets are toting rockets. It says here in my documentations that Chris Paul has a missile cruiser on the back of his Escalade. He can literally shoot missiles out of the back of his Escalade. That's how the Houston Rockets roll. And the Clippers know this, and that's why they don't want any beef. James Harden, his last name isn't Harden for no reason. It says here, he's the one that jumped Patrick Beverly into the Blood Gang. James Harden has been affiliated with gangs ever since he was in California with Russell Westbrook. Half of the NBA is well-known gang members, and that's why the Clippers don't get any respect, because they're in LA, but they don't have one single Blood or Crip on the team. This is the reason why Doc Rivers set up a meeting with the leader of the Blood Gang, because he wanted his son, Austin Rivers, to be initiated into the Bloods. But Chris Paul ruined this when he told the leader of the Bloods that Austin Rivers still believes in Santa Claus. And by doing this took away every ounce of street cred from the Clippers, and Doc Rivers was outraged. He tried to explain to the leader of the Bloods that Austin Rivers only still believed in Santa Claus because Santa wears all of that red, and Austin believed that Santa was gangsta. And to make a long story short, Austin Rivers is not a gangbanger because of Chris Paul. You guys have to understand how tough it is to live in LA if you don't have a B or a C in your name. Now, Chris Paul is okay because he has the C in Chris. That means he's okay with the Crip gang. Blake Griffin is okay because he has the B in his name. That means he's okay with the Blood gang. Kobe Bryant is okay because he has the B in Bryant. He's associated with the Blood gang. But Austin Rivers doesn't have a B or a C in his name, so he's not affiliated. He's a target. He's like fresh meat. And the only person that's keeping the gang members off of his behind is his father, Doc Rivers, because Doc has the C in Doc Rivers. This is all proven documentations here, you guys. All Chris Paul had to do was shut his mouth and not say anything about Santa Claus, and Austin Rivers would be a bona fide OG gangster Crip right about now. The next time the Rockets play the Clippers will bust some Clips at their tour bus, because Austin Rivers needs to get his street creds now or never. The Clippers organization is like Death Row Records, and Doc Rivers is the Dr. Dre of the crew. Donald Sterling would be Suge Knight, and Austin Rivers is Tupac. And DeAndre Jordan is Snoop Dogg because he wants out of the organization. He wants to go down south to Houston with Chris Paul. And Chris Paul would be like Master P in this situation. Basically, the beef is going to get really funky. This beef is going to get funkier than your girlfriend's underwear on a Saturday night. You can't blame Austin Rivers for wanting to be a gangbanger. Who doesn't want a crip walk? Who doesn't want to do the G thing? Who doesn't want to do a who ride? You can't blame. So what, he believes in Santa Claus. He's been a rich kid all of his life. He grew up like the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. And Uncle Phil is the Doc Rivers in his life. You can't blame Austin Rivers for wanting to do the G thing. How else is he going to get a decent girlfriend? How else is he going to get respect around the NBA? And Chris Paul ruined that for Austin Rivers. All he had to do was keep his mouth shut. Now, every time the Rockets go up against the LA Clippers, there's going to be some funk. There's going to be some beef, and James Harden, he's not going for it. He has that Rick Ross beard, so you know he's not to be messed with. James Harden is the #1 Crip in Bompton. And tell him I said it, because I know this is a fact. Why do you think they called it OKC? They could have called it OKF, OKM. They called it OKC because that stands for Oklahoma Crips. And that's why they wore the blue. The same reason why the Clippers wear the red and the blue, because they don't know what they are. They have no gangster affiliation, so they just want to be neutral. But the Rockets, without a doubt, represents those B-boys. And you can tell by their swag, you can tell by the way they handle themselves that they're affiliated with the Blood Gang. Anyways, I gotta get going. I would love it if you guys subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, hit that notification button, and head over to Sean Blazington TV, or you could just stay put right here, baby.
You are my lover, I'll always want you, girl. You're so amazing, just like my documentations. You are my lover, I'll always want you, girl. You're so amazing, just like my documentation.
Sean Blazington back with the facts. Tried to tell the truth, but you can't handle that. You're living in the dark like an alley cat. My documentation is the candle and the match.
You are my lover, I'll always want you, girl. You're so amazing, just like my documentations. You are my lover, I'll always want you, girl. You're so amazing, just like my documentations.